Okay, so this afternoon, gentlemen, we have got Jonathan Wrait who's coming. So Jonathan Wrait is actually Namdi's mentor who he meets with regularly. Jonathan is an old boy, although I've just been told we're not supposed to be calling you old boys anymore because that conjures up images that perhaps are not as positive. So you are a Westlaker, ex-Westlaker, or alumni. Lived that today. And, yeah, sorry. I don't know. Alright, so Jonathan's in today, I guess, talk to you about his entrepreneurial journey. And it's quite fitting, really, because it started at school or just post school, and Bill was one of his first mentors. And so, you know, Bill obviously has been hugely passionate about helping young people for a long, long time. Not trying to say Jonathan has been around for a long, long time, but pre-Jonathan as well, and then obviously up until the current day. Okay? So I thought it was a good opportunity for someone to come in and speak to you who's not, too much older in terms of age and life stages, whereas some of our other speakers have been quite a wee way ahead of you in their entrepreneurial journeys. Okay, so I'm going to pass over to Jonathan. And yeah, so are you having questions throughout, or do you want to leave them to the end?
Yeah, I can answer questions throughout. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Good.
Okay, so listening, if we're not writing on our phones or our laptops, then we don't need them. Okay, we're not doodling on the whiteboard desks. Okay, cool. Go for it. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, thank you for that introduction. So yeah, so as Mrs. Russell said, so I previously at Westlake, so my 7th form year was 2008, so a little while ago, but not that long ago. Cool. So all the way through high school, I was going to become an engineer. So I did my maths, did my sciences, also did a bit of English. And in 7th form, I was sitting there in assembly, brought out of my mind, and they'd organised a Bill Smale and someone else to come up on stage. And he started talking about his entrepreneurial journey. And I thought, that sounds awesome, that sounds way better than going and getting a job. So I thought, cool, let's go start a business. My dad at the time, he was a pilot, and he'd bought him a couple of ceramic knives from Japan, so I thought, cool, I can get these ceramic knives cheap in Japan, I can flog them on Trade Me and make some money. I knew nothing about business, and so I can tell you that didn't work. My dad had a good idea. He's like, we'll get in touch with Bill. He's been there, done that, and see what his advice is. So plucked up a bit of courage, didn't want to call him, so flipped him an email, and fortunately he got back to me. And so it was 14 years ago, down at the auditorium we met for the first time, and I spoke to him about my business ideas. Spoke to him about the ceramic knife business and all these amazing ideas of what I could do. And one of the best piece of advice he gave me right early on was make the most of being a student. So if you're a student and you've got a business, it's really easy to go and talk to someone and say, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee and have a chat? Or his idea with I didn't go and do this, I didn't have enough guts at the time, but he was like, ring up Stevens and say, hey, I'm doing this project for school, I'm going to sell these knives, can you give me a space in my store? Now if you're a businessman, older, they're going to say no. But if you're a student, there's a lot more that people are willing to do to help you. So while it may seem that people don't take you seriously as a student, there are a lot of advantages of being there, particularly being part of the Westlake Enterprise Academy. So definitely use that to your advantage. So I decided not to do that business because ceramic knives are not the most exciting thing in the world, so I wasn't passionate about it. So I went to all my friends, and there was only one of my friends who was also interested in business. So I thought, cool, flicked him a text and said, hey, let's go start a business. So funnily enough, his name was also Jonathan. He was also ex-Westlake, so he was a year ahead of me. So he just left and gone off to university. I'd missed the boat for Young Enterprise, but he was involved in, it's now called Velocity, but it's Spark, which is Auckland University's entrepreneurship program. So we decided to do some stuff through there. So we did the whole brainstorm, a million business ideas, what's going to work, and we came up with an organic liquid fertilizer of all things. And I bet you've come up with some pretty crazy stuff in your brainstorming ideas. So at University of Auckland, their programs are a lot more academic, so you wrote a business plan, you put it into the competition. So we did that for our business, and we managed to win $1,000, which was pretty cool. And it's kind of like, okay, maybe we know a little bit about what we're doing here. And that really gave us sort of a bit of momentum to go actually do something. So, but we had no idea how to start a fertilizer business. And so we were like, okay, well that's probably a step too far. What's something that we can do right now, get started, build up some capital, build up some experience, and then go do something else. So I'd actually been a tutor for a young enterprise business that ran a tutoring company here at Westlake. And they decided not to carry it on after 7th form. So they're all mates of mine, so I said, hey, do you mind if we use the idea and we get this started? And so that was Virtuoso Tutoring, which is my my very first business. So because I'd worked in the business here at Westlake, I had an idea of how it should run and also what I'd do to improve it. So we put together a pitch, and Bill helped us get in touch with a whole bunch of schools. So we obviously pitched here at Westlake, down the road at Westlake Girls, Carmel College, Northcote College, Rangitoto. So Bill helped us set up the meetings, and then Jonathan and I went in and we pitched our idea. Fortunately, Westlake Girls said, yep, if Bill's involved, we'll give this a go. And so in 3 weeks we went from just having a pitch to actually having a business. So okay, how do we do this? We need to get a website up. We need to go hire some tutors. So we put an ad out in the Westlake Girls day sheet. We had a whole bunch of your top students apply. And so we went through the CVs, went through the hiring process. So we had to figure that all out. And we hired a bunch of them, did a training session down at the boardroom at Smells Farm, and got our website up. We wrote an advertisement on the back of the Westlake Girls School newsletter, and it was the day after Queen's birthday weekend was our first launch day. And we've been able to get a phone from Vodafone, which you could plug in anywhere, and it had an 09 number. And so we sat down in the business school in Bonawalk University, plugged the phone in and waited for it to ring. And it actually did. Now this normally it doesn't happen, but we were fortunate. We actually got 2 customers on day one. One was the son of the Westlake Girls principal at the time, and one was just someone who'd seen it on the back of the school newsletter and said, hey, can I book my daughter in for a tutorial? So we had a business, we had our first customer, and we went from there. And I think the reason that we were able to be successful initially was it was something that we knew. So we'd both been tutored before, the business was familiar to us, we could get our friends to come in and tutor. We were able to build a relationship with Westlake Girls, and we could use their marketing materials in order to promote the business. And because we'd been part of that business, like when I was part of the Young Enterprise scheme, we really understood the problem that we solved. So the reason we didn't get into Westlake Boys was they had a free peer tutoring scheme, and they didn't want to have us there as a paid scheme, and which is a bit funny. But the reason that we did set up was the free scheme at the time didn't work. You know, if something's free, the tutor wouldn't turn up, the student wouldn't turn up, and so it wasn't particularly effective. But as soon as the parent was paying for a tutorial, we obviously could put some structure around it and make sure it happened. But the big thing is the parent's going to make their students turn up, and obviously we make sure the tutor turn up, they're paid very well above minimum wage, and so it works. So because we really understood our problem and that solution, so when we pitched to schools, it made sense. So we did eventually get Northcote College on board, but even though we ended up pitching to the board here at Westlake, we never actually got an answer. So it's a bit of a story in that. So yeah, Westlake Girls finished the first sales, and one of the things that we unintentionally did really well was our only marketing was putting an ad out in the back of the school newsletter. And the reason that worked was that went to every single parent at Westlake Girls. Because it was on the school newsletter, it looked like the school was endorsing us, so they were going to pick us over any other tutoring company out there. And we were just inundated. So I ran the company for about 3 or 4 years, and we did thousands of tutorials. We ended up getting a lot of Westlake boys going down and getting tutored as well. We had a classroom on school grounds after school, and we just facilitated and organised the whole thing. And I guess what was really cool about that business was it was sort of business 101. Like, we did everything. So we did obviously a website, we wrote all our marketing material, we did all the sales, all the customer service, We hired and fired the tutors, we managed the whole thing, we did payroll, we did our bookkeeping. There wasn't any year we did our own legal contracts. Fortunately, we had Bill there obviously to check things and make sure we wouldn't get ourselves into too much trouble. But it was a great way to learn and sort of get started. One of the other things that Bill was really helpful was my parents were in a business. I didn't really know many other people who were in business, so I started off without much of a network. And that's probably that hard thing as a student, is you don't have much of a network unless you've got parents who are in business. So Bill was great. Once we built up a bit of trust and that sort of thing with him, he was happy to intro to us to certain people. But I also got involved in a networking group called BNI. So I was there this morning. And so it's a networking organisation where business owners meet for breakfast once a week, and you exchange referrals and you build your networks. And so there's 40, all different businesses in my group that I went to this morning. And I went there as an 18-year-old, dressed up in a suit, turned up as an 18-year-old, and they loved it. I mean, it's the guys are there sort of 30 to 60 plus, but they're all willing to give their time and their knowledge and their expertise and help us out along the way. So I was fortunate enough, back when it's a lot more accepted for students to go and start businesses. Back when I started, which actually wasn't that long ago, there weren't a hell of a lot of people doing it. And I was actually fortunate enough to win for the Global Student Entrepreneur of the Year for New Zealand back in 2011, and I got to go up to New York, up to Wall Street, and pitch my business to millionaires and billionaires from all around the world with student entrepreneurs from 30 different countries, which was an incredible experience. And out of that, I was able to get a bunch of PR. Didn't make the most of it, but I got on TV and radio and that sort of thing, which in 2021 is all pretty cool. And that is the advantage of being a student. Is if you're doing cool stuff, there is more of an opportunity for your stories and what you're up to be picked up. Like if I was doing my tutoring company now, no one would be as interested as they were when I was 18, 19, 20. So I was at university, so initially I was half enrolled in engineering. I decided, no, I want to do something different. I'm going to run my businesses. What's something that's going to be useful? So I decided to do a degree in psychology and HR, because obviously HR is a big component of what we do. Psychology is about people, business is about people. So while I was at university, I thought, well, I've got a business that's targeting high school students, but here I'm at university, what business could I run that I could target to university students? So if I step back a bit, with our tutoring company Virtuoso, so we did all your traditional subjects, and we thought, well, there's a big opportunity with English as a second language. So why don't we expand into that area? And we thought, well, we could do some of the tutoring at Smiles Farm. Bill let us use one of the Lockwood homes down there, and we could cut out the school because we had to pay a cut to the school. And we know some friends who can speak Chinese and speak Korean, and we'll put some ads up in the Korean newspaper and Chinese newspaper, and we'll see if we can get some students. And it didn't work. And it was quite a good lesson in what actually made Virtuoso work, in that the school was so important. When it was just us putting ads in the newspaper, there was no credibility about who we are and what we were doing. And so while we decided not to pursue that, we ended up spinning it out into a proofreading editing service for university students. So English second language, they're writing their essays or their dissertations, or they're doing their PhDs, and we'd help them improve the grammar. We wouldn't obviously write it for them. I know there's been a bit of controversy since then around companies doing essays and that sort of thing for students. And so what we do, we put, there's heaps of notice boards. I don't know if you've been talking to university, other universities, heaps of notice boards. So we've got a whole bunch of big posters with our fry-up on there, stuck all around the university. And we started getting clients. And we got a website created where you could upload the document, calculate the word counts, and we had different tiers of pricing based on how quickly people wanted it back. So if you wanted it back the next day, it was going to be a lot more expensive than if they wanted it back in a week. And what was quite cool was then we actually started getting a few businesses, same thing, but had their marketing material, so the English second language, had their marketing material websites that they needed proofread or edited. And so we started doing that, and they were like, well, instead of us struggling through writing it, can you write it for us? So like, yep, we can do that. And that's how I fell into, I always loved English at school, and that's how I fell into copywriting, which is writing for marketing. And then they'd be like, well, can you do email marketing? Can you do SEO? Can you do Google AdWords? Can you do social media marketing? And our favourite word at the time was yes. They'd say, can you do it? We'd say yes. We'd jump on Google, figure out how to do it. And so by the time I finished university, and it's on the next slide, my proofreading business had turned into a full-service digital agency completely by accident. But one of the interesting things about the name was, it's now called Velocity, but they organised a whole lot of guest speakers to come in, and one of them was Rod Drury, the founder of Xero. And one of the things, if you're ever hearing someone speak, always go up to them afterwards with a question. So I went up to Rod Drury at the end of this, and I go, how'd you pick the name Xero? And he's like, well, the number one thing is I wanted to be short. And I wanted with a Z, but that was going to cost like a couple $100,000. So I think it was about 60 grand to get the X, so that's how Xero called Xero. So I was thinking, well, if I'm going to call my proofreading company, I'm going to get something as short as possible. And so that's how we ended up with Reddit. And that's another, I'll come to another reason. But yeah, always, whenever you hear someone speak, don't be afraid to ask a question and go up and talk to them, because you never know where it would lead. So, and it's definitely been successful too for me. So yeah, so I had this digital agency by accident. We decided to call it Red Gorilla. The reason being, red's my favourite colour, and at the time there were a lot of agencies that combined a colour and a cool animal. We wanted Red Frog. It's obviously evolving from what we're doing in the proofreading company, but I can tell you every single colour of frog is being used as a business. So Red Gorilla was available, so we picked that. And as I mentioned, it was all about saying yes. Can you do this? Yep, figure it out. And away we went. And we were fortunate at the timing because digital marketing was still new, so being young was a big advantage. We're like, well, you're growing up with it, obviously you know what you're doing, here's our marketing budget, go do it. I'm back in marketing now, and I can tell you it's quite a different industry. Networking was also really important. So back when I had one of my earlier businesses, I got introduced to this guy called UK at an event. So when we started Red Gorilla, I was like, man, where are these sales going to come from? I was working on the website, getting it up, and I was sitting at my in-law's kitchen table and I got a phone call. And this guy UK that I met a couple of years earlier, he goes, I remember you mentioned your proofreading business, you're still doing it. I've got a whole bunch of work to send your way. And he had actually started his own website, SEO and AdWords agency. And so he ended up pushing a lot of work our way, and we did a partnership. So he'd provide his services to our clients, and we'd provide our services to his clients. And it worked really well. And that's power networking. You never know who you're going to meet or where in the future they may be able to help you out. And that's probably a big thing with my story, is you can sort of trace how I've ended up where I've got to depending on who I've met and who they've introduced me to. So, up to this point, I was never going to get a job, and that was the whole thing with startup business. It's like, there's no way I want a job. And there's a joke that people go and start a business and end up working 80 plus hours a week because they want to avoid getting a job and working 40. And there's definitely a bit of truth in that. So I had a couple of clients, and one of them, BookTrack, they rang me up. They're a client from a digital agency, and they rang me up and they said, hey, love what you do, can you come work for us? But I stepped back. Paul, the CEO of BookTrack, he actually spoke at one of the Velocity events, and I went up and spoke to him after. He goes, oh, that's really cool what you do. Put me an email and we can catch up, because there may be an opportunity. And they just lost their marketing manager. I had a digital agency, put up with him for a coffee, and he said, hey, why don't you come on board and do marketing for us? So that was just conversation after a speaking event. So he loved what I did, so he ended up hiring me and giving me a job. So BookTrack at the time was the only, so I'm not sure if you heard of Peter Thiel, so he's one of the founders of PayPal and the first external investor in Facebook. So at the time he'd only invested in 2 New Zealand companies, one was Xero and the other was BookTrack. So it was at the time a very high profile New Zealand startup. sort of the who's who, like Stephen Tyndall invested in it, the sort of the who's who of New Zealand and Silicon Valley investors who poured a whole lot of money into it. And it was an incredible company to be part of, to experience what it's like to be in a tech startup. So I got to go up and work in Silicon Valley for a little bit and manage our interns in the US. I got to go to meetings at Google and some of the other Silicon Valley companies and sort of see what this cool tech lifestyle is about. One of the interesting things was I learned that having a job there's nothing wrong with getting a job. And the great thing is you get to learn on someone else's money. So when you've got your own business, there's not a huge amount of money, your marketing budgets are small, and you've got to do everything on sort of a shoestring budget or on the smell of an oily rag. Whereas when you've got a job, like our marketing budget was like $1 million a year. So I could try and test and do all sorts of things I never would have been able to do with my own business. But then when I went into my own business again, I could sort of take those experiences and those learnings. And also the people you meet and the introductions you get, because you're just that next step up. Instead of being a startup, you're actually a fully fledged business. So it's really awesome. Ended up organising John Key to come into our office and we present our product and that sort of thing. So it was a really, really cool experience. And I did almost every role in the company. I sort of filled gaps, and it was the term is sort of if you're an entrepreneur in a business, you're an intrapreneur. So it was the same sort of thing. So I'd go and set up different divisions and areas of the business. I'd do legal, I'd do HR, I'd do marketing, I'd do comms, I manage the team, I'd do user testing for our software products and our apps, I'd go to trade shows. So it was awesome to get a very wide range of experiences. And I had another client who wanted to hire me, and this is actually one of Bill's companies, Wireless Nation. And funnily enough, the owner of Wireless Nation was the guy that built my Reddit proofreading website. So when I was thinking of moving on from BookTrack, I got in touch with Bill and said, hey, I'm looking at doing something different. And so we organised a catch-up. Didn't realise it was an interview at the time until I sat down with them. And they've managed to run for 10 years without a marketing manager. And it's amazing how many companies are like that, and we work with a lot of them now. So they wanted me to come on board as a marketing manager. I was 23, never been a marketing manager before, but it was the same thing, say yes, jump on board and then figure it out later. And it was fantastic because I come from a very digital marketing background. Wireless Nation was selling rural broadband. You can't use digital marketing and get farmers on board if they've got bad internet. So I had to learn the old school form of marketing. So I was going down to field days, we did a lot of print, we did TV, we did radio, we did a lot of strategic partnerships. And just like how my relationship with Westlake Girls and Northcote College was a strategic partnership to leverage the credibility in their marketing channels, we did the same thing at Wireless Nation. They weren't that well known in the market, but when we partnered with PG Wrightson, which is one of the largest, or at the time was the largest farm supplies company in the country, obviously ASB Rural, and one of the larger banks, we could leverage their channels, we could leverage their credibility so that we could actually start getting customers without having to take that time to build up that trust ourselves. And what I also saw working there was the importance of sales and marketing. So this was the first time I worked for a business that had a sales department and obviously us in the marketing department. And often what you get in companies is you get quite a conflict between the two. Sales is blaming marketing because they're not sending enough leads their way, and marketing is blaming sales for not closing the leads or the potential customers they're sending their way. And that's something that now, the current company I'm at, we do a lot of work in. And so I got to see that idea of just how important each of those areas of the business are. So I got bored with working for someone and decided to get back out there and run my own business and do something completely different. I started a food business. I'd never done anything in the food industry, never had any background in it, but how hard can it be? Pretty hard, I can tell you. Through my parents, I got introduced to a guy that had developed a new type of food processing machinery. It's quite revolutionary. And if you've got a machine that's never made food for sale before, you kind of got to produce some food and sell it first if we can sell this machine. You've got to show what it can do. So decided, cool, let's start a food brand as a proof of concept. So we made a healthy snack food brand, and we started grassroots. So we started out at Takapuna markets, selling our products. We slowly built it up, got into a few organic stores, and eventually in Huckleberries. And I can tell you, food industry is a really tough one, and it's not one I probably would go back to. But learned a hell of a lot the difference between service business, which I've been running previously, and a product business. They're quite a different type of business, and product businesses can take a lot longer, particularly if you're doing the manufacturing yourselves. And the biggest thing that I learned with a food business is you can't skip steps. So while we could get into stores, you get into a store, you do a few demos, the product sells, but as soon as you're not in the store, and if you don't keep getting sales, they're going to drop you. And you've only got one chance to get into stores. So the only way to get around that is to spend a hell of a lot of time building it up, which is to try to skip that step, where you've got a lot of money to do a lot of marketing, to be on a lot of buses, a lot of billboards, a lot of TV advertising, so that when people go into a store, they buy a product. Because we all work on autopilot. If you go into a supermarket, we buy just to use your brand. So you've got to do a lot of work to overcome that. We tried to go somewhere in the middle, and it didn't work. And that was also a really good lesson, because I ended up borrowing a decent amount of money from my father-in-law to get this business started, and it didn't work. So it's pretty humbling having to go back to him and say, hey, I failed. And because up till now, most of my businesses have been relatively successful. So I went in there with a lot more confidence than I should have had. Business isn't easy, and everything you touch is not necessarily going to turn to gold. So that was a fantastic experience for me. So the food business not being so successful, I got more involved in the machine, and this is where I got to be an engineer without having an engineering degree. So I spent so much time using the machine, so I came on board as a consultant and ended up being a director of the company. I actually helped them redevelop the machine, so it was ready for sale. So we sold a few into the UK and around New Zealand. And it's pretty incredible piece of kit, and with clients like Wild Wheat creating on this. So basically what would happen is Wild Wheat would sell bread to, say, Farrow's or supermarket. And if it doesn't sell after a day, then that bread gets sent back to Wild Wheat, and they can't really do anything with it. So what they could do, they could crumb it down, put it through a machine, and they could use that to make another loaf. So it was a great way to sort of recycle. So we had all cool applications for this machine. And things were going really well, and then COVID hit. And a lot of the funding for the business came out of the UK, so that all dried up when COVID hit, and then unfortunately the owner got dementia. So I'm not involved in this business anymore. But what I'd done in the meantime is I'd missed everything I'd done since I stopped my agency was I'd worked for one particular brand. So it was doing, once you got everything started, it was kind of the same stuff. So it was like, well, I wanted to get back agency working with a wide range of different clients, wide range of different industries. So I hadn't done a lot of market validation in previous businesses, and this is where I realised that mistake. So before I started Regular the second time, I actually went out to a few networking groups and said, hey, this is my experience, I'm looking to start a business in marketing, can I sit down and have a coffee? So I talked to a huge number of people, and I realised that the business Regular that I had before around content and writing was actually even more important. There's more of a gap in the market now than there was previously. I was like, cool, I'll start that. And it was so much harder starting from scratch, and I saw how I got a couple of lucky breaks along the way with certain clients. Like when, particularly around, obviously, Yusuke calling me up out of the blue, and our biggest client Regular the first time, he randomly found us online, and when I went to meet with him, he saw a magazine article that I was in, and so he was like, he was going to work with me no matter what, and he gave us a ton of work. So I had a couple of luck with a few clients. So when I came to start Regular the second time, I thought, oh, this can't be too hard. And it was, and it was humbling to actually go slowly, build up your client base, go to networking groups, talk to a hell of a lot of people, do a hell of a lot of sales, and slowly be able to build it back up. And that's where networking was absolutely critical. So I was going to B&Is in different groups and really doing a hell of a lot of sales. And then Regularly ended up evolving, so I just kept it narrow, focused on the writing side, and then we ended up expanding into the email marketing side of things as well. So it was existing client base, what else can I sell them which still uses my same capability and same team, which is a great way to grow as opposed to trying to do it all at once. So instead of launching a full service digital agency, pick one area, do it really well, and then slowly add on the others for your existing customer base. It's a much easier way to do it. You're not going to stretch yourself so thin. So so regularly end up leading me to Attain, which is where I am now. So you've probably noticed that I've only ever worked for clients. So Attain, they were, so this is Sean, he's actually going to come to speak to you in a couple of weeks. So he started Attain 4 years ago, so I knew him before that, and it was actually Yusuke, the guy that rang me up, and I was at my mum's kitchen table, introduced me. So he introduced me to Sean, he said, come along to an event, I'm speaking at it, Sean's speaking at it, you might get him as a client. So I went along, had a chat to him afterwards, and that's what I did. So he was a client before he started Attain, and I got to see their journey. And I was actually at their launch party, which was pretty cool. So they started off as a sales training organisation, and they ended up merging with different marketing businesses to grow. So we're now a full service digital agency, a full service revenue growth agency. But they started focusing on what they're really good at, sales training, and then they brought in different businesses and merged them in to build that full service rather than going out like that straight away. So I'm now one of the owners. So what happened was, Sean rang me up at the start of last year and said, hey, love what you do. Do you want to merge your agency in, and away we go. And I'd actually done one of Attain's sales training courses just after lockdown last year, almost tripled my business. And sales has been something that I've always tried to avoid. It's not something that comes naturally to me, but unfortunately as a business owner, it's probably the number one skill that you need. And if I'd got over that fear of sales and had some proper sales training way back, my businesses would have been a lot more successful than what they otherwise were. But it's never too late to learn, and it was amazing once I went through this training. She saw that sales isn't that hard. It's literally a conversation. We do it every day. My business really took off. And I thought, well, hey, if that's what I'm going to learn in a short course for Attain, what's it going to be like if I come on board and go on this amazing journey? So Attain started 4 years ago. It's more than doubled every year. Started with Sean and this business partner Bill. It's now up to 30 staff, 3 countries. We've tripled our revenue since I've been on board, and we're looking to triple it again in the next year. So we help companies grow, and we're obviously a good poster child for doing that. And it's a super exciting environment to be a part of. So I'm now one of the owners, so I've got a decent shareholding in the company, part of the senior leadership team, and I manage all of our marketing and production team. And while I've not had any sort of formal training in any of this, it's all my experiences from when I started my first business when I was here at Westlaker at 18 that have helped me along the way to learn, and the different mentors and different training, everything that I've done, which has enabled me at a relatively young age. I'm by far the youngest in the senior leadership team and of the owners, to be able to be in this role. And that's one of the great things about going and starting a business. You're going to learn a hell of a lot more than whatever you're going to learn if you do a course or go to university and that sort of thing. Not to say you don't do those things, but it's amazing what you learn by just getting out and doing it, and making a hell of a lot of mistakes along the way. So as I mentioned, revenue growth agency, and now we've got Mike Hutchinson. So he's the ex-manager of Saatchi & Saatchi, so they're one of the largest ad agencies in the world. He just recently joined our board, and he thinks what we're doing is the future of agency. So it's pretty cool to be a part of something that's going somewhere. And I think the other key part of everything that I've done about starting a business, yes, it's really hard, but at the end of the day, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And if it's not fun, it's best not to do it. So that's the team. We recently had our A Day, so dress up as something starting with A. So we've got an awesome team and awesome culture. So I guess in summary, some of the lessons that I've learned, so sort of 5 lessons. So just do it. Say yes and just get out there and do it. It's very easy to sort of over-analyse around business ideas and this is going to work and is that. Sometimes you don't know until you just get out there and talk to people and actually try to start something. Everyone's got a business idea, and you hear a lot of people say, oh yeah, I've got this great idea to start a business, but they never do it. So the awesome thing about what you guys are doing here is you've taken a really big step to go and start a business, which is absolutely awesome. Get involved. The other person that spoke after Bill when I was in Senate Form here at Westlake was a lady called Naira, who was involved in Young Enterprise for a long time. And the thing I took out of what she said, so she was an absolute high achiever. So she got top marks, and she got into all these top universities in the States. She got a degree with top results, and so she thought that she basically had to pick of who was going to hire her. And amazingly for her was no one offered her a job. And what they said, well, you've got these amazing academics, but you've got nothing else. You didn't get involved in anything else while at university or while you're at school. Go back to university, get involved, and then we'll talk. And so that's when I went to Auckland University. That was something that I did. I made sure I got involved as much as I possibly could. I got involved in Velocity, which did all the entrepreneurship stuff, and a whole bunch of other clubs and that sort of thing. And that's where you meet different people, you learn, and a lot of those people that you meet here at Westlake and you meet at university, they're going to go through the workforce with you. And you never know who they're going to become. And it's quite amazing, even say 14 years later, looking on LinkedIn and seeing where the different people went to school with, where they've got to and what they're up to. Build your networks. It is, I mean, people will tell you, and I was told at school, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But it is so true. I mean, I've got to where I've got to by the people that I've managed to meet. And while sometimes it may seem like luck, it's literally, those are a couple of people I mentioned today that I've met, and there's a lot of people that I've had conversations with and nothing's happened. But it may be in 5, 10, 20 years' time, who knows, and people sort of come out of the woodwork, you bump into someone and opportunities can happen. As I mentioned before, sales is really the most important area of your business. I'm in marketing, but particularly for a small and a startup business, sales is more important than marketing. It's very easy, and I did this, it's very easy to hide behind marketing because it's easier. You don't have to get out and talk to people. I was an introvert, well I still am an introvert, I still don't love sales, but learning how to sell in a way that's most comfortable for you, and it's probably our most popular sales training course, is so important. And I mean, we do sales every day without realising it. You know, if you want your friends to go to a restaurant or watch a particular movie or want to ask a girl out on a date, it's all sales. You're all trying to persuade someone to do something. And a lot of us do it without realising it. And because I put that label of sales and I had, you know, it's the cold calling, the phone calls at 6 o'clock at night, or it's the door knocking, you know, it can put you off. But it's not really that. It's literally sitting down and having a cup of coffee, having a conversation. They've got a problem you can potentially solve. You just have that conversation and then you can get to a result. It's not, you don't have to pitch someone. And actually on that pitch thing, one of the things we did learn when we were doing the pitching for virtuoso the schools is we're very practiced, and we'd get up, my business partner and I, and we'd have our PowerPoints and we'd go and we'd literally pitch. I'd go into pitch mode, and I remember we went to Carmel College, because normally there were a whole bunch of teachers who were pitching to. We went to Carmel College and it was just the principal. And so my business partner and I, we got up and we pitched at her, and you could see she was literally like, okay. And I remember Bill afterwards, he's like, you've got to read the situation. You know, if it's just one person, sit down, have a conversation. You still have a PowerPoint and talk to it. But you don't have to stand up the front and pitch to them. So that was obviously a key lesson that we learned. So yeah, sales is super, super important. Wish I'd learned that earlier. And find strategic partnerships. So when you're small, that's a great way to accelerate growth and leverage that trust and credibility. Particularly if you're a student starting a business, that trust and credibility is potentially less there than it otherwise would be. But like us partnering with Westlake Girls and Northwood College, there may be partnerships in the businesses that you're running where you can partner with them, leverage their brand, their marketing channels, their audience, and the trust and credibility they've already built with them in order to get your business accelerated and actually start getting some sales earlier. So that's me. Any questions?
Very interesting, just based on some of the things we were talking about this morning. Never step on the little guy. You never know when you might need him. Can I just have a show of hands already from this year? Who's built their network? Who has got a bigger network now than they did at the beginning of the year? How did you do that?
Walking.
To who?
People. Anybody. Whoever who was listening.
Yeah, people who would you have done that, do you think, normally? No, so yeah, hopefully we've already, created, and who in here just dreads the idea of sales? Yeah. I need to talk to you about, that's an area that I think we need to look at is sales. Any questions? I've got one. What's next? Are you going to stay? Because, you're not all that old, and I'm sitting here in a job, and I've been in the same profession for 18 years, in the same job, or same school, not the same job, for 15. Everyone knows I don't take risks. What's next for you? Do you think you'll settle here for a bit, or have you got other ideas? Like, you seem to be the sort of, not a step, but an entrepreneur, they don't tend to.
Yeah,
or do you not know?
No, it's a very good question, and I have done a lot in a short space of time, sort of jumped around and that sort of thing. The way I see Attain is that I'll be there for sort of the next 9 years. I felt like I found a platform where, because we're growing so rapidly and going to different areas, I can, instead of building a business, I can build areas of the business. So I don't have to leave and go and start something else. And because I've had a lot of business partners along the way, but I finally found, there's 5 of us who own the company, but the 4 others which we're all on the same page and want to go to the same place, and we've all got complementary skills. So we've got such an awesome team. It's kind of like I've spent the last 14 years trying to find this, and now I've found it. But I don't see myself doing it forever. I think at some point we're going to build it to the point that someone's going to come along and buy us, hopefully get a nice payday, and then go do something else.
Any questions? I had another one that's just going on my head. Sam?
What's been the toughest part of the journey?
The toughest part? I think the toughest part was probably when my food business didn't go the way I wanted it. I'd got $80,000 from my father-in-law, and I was married. I had a house and mortgage, and wasn't earning a hell of a lot of money. And because I'd had a lot of successes up to then, that was probably my first big knock. So it was a huge knock of confidence. But fortunately, I got back up and got back out there and built things back up again. So that was probably the hardest moment, because I'd been able to use all my past successes to sort of fuel my confidence. So it was a really good learning experience.
Also, when you were first starting out, I don't know, I sort of had this thing where it's I get to a new time, it's I don't know what to do next. How do you sort of get around that?
Honestly, that's where mentors are great. And Bill was amazing. He gave up so much of his time. Oh wow! So this is ASAP Tutoring. So this is the tutoring company, young enterprise company that I was working for as a tutor, which was the basis for Virtuoso. So that's pretty cool. 2008. Wow.
Yeah. I keep everything. This is my second year at Westlake, and I had taught these boys in my first year here. Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry to interrupt that.
So that's a great time to go to your mentor. So we sit down with Bill and say, this is all the things we're doing, what should we do next? Or think about doing this and that sort of thing. So what's great, you've all got your mentors, so if you ever get to that point, ask them. Yes.
Would you say if you didn't fail in your business that you would not learn things that you learned that you wouldn't fail?
100%. And it's funny because looking back, there's probably not many things that I've done wrong that someone previously had told me don't do that. Or you hear a lot of speakers, you read a lot of things, and I know particularly once we had a few successes it's easy to get to what you think you know best or better, and you're like, well that doesn't apply to me, or that won't apply to me. And funnily enough, most of what people tell you does actually come to pass, but sometimes you have to learn the lessons for it really to stick. And then you go through it and you're like, oh, that's right. But it's also, I think, particularly around if you fail, that resilience or that to be able to pick yourself up, because business is very much a roller coaster. There'll be highs and there'll be lows. It's never going to, once you get to the top, you're sweet, it's going to go down again. So learning that resilience and how to pick yourself back up again.
What would you do differently if you were going to do it again?
The number one thing would be the focus around sales. I can see we were good at build, because we were good at conceptually building businesses, and there were a lot of smarts around what we were doing. But because there was that fear to go out and sell, we could never grow. We were always the hindrance of our own growth, so to speak. So, like, if I knew how to sell like I do now, back then, I would have made a hell of a lot more money and been a lot more successful. But you kind of got to go through it to learn that. Yeah. Yes.
How would you learn something like sales? What would you do
Well, the programs that we've got, it's a great place to start. So I think I
Here
might.
comes a sales pitch.
So I think, did you send around the Attain world?
I haven't yet.
You haven't
no.
yet. Okay.
No.
Cool. Well, Mrs. Rusk and I will have a chat. So we do have some resources, and that's something we do. So one of the programs that we do run is sales for people who have to sell but don't, people who have to sell but don't like it, and that's obviously your business owners, and particularly in people in technical fields. So, but yeah, we'll have a chat.
We'll definitely do some more. I thought it was, I wanted to wait till you came in, get a bit more of an idea, and then go from, I hadn't. Probably a little bit early for someone. I think someone's still trying to get their head around the product and the customer discovery before they sort of try to start selling it. But yeah, it's something we'll definitely address. That's good advice. Nick?
You said you did psychology at university. Do you reckon that helped you with the sales aspect of running a business?
Definitely. So business is all about people. So not just the sales side, but marketing. Whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, you're trying to persuade someone to do something. You know, whether it's buy your product, whether it's do a deal with you, whether it's come on board as a staff member. So what I learned through psychology was extremely useful. Same with managing the team. So I manage our production team now, so 12 people. So even just that, anything that involves people in business is all about people. And it was amazing actually, is how many entrepreneurs I've met who have psychology degrees or psychology backgrounds. Yeah, just not like it was intentional, but.
And a lot seem to end up in marketing and HR, not psychology, because obviously once you've done your sort of basic psychology degree, it's very then difficult to get into the next level psychology. I know when I was at uni in the dark ages, they only took a very small number of thousands of people to first year psych for all different reasons. And a lot of psychologists end up in business and marketing and HR. One thing I liked when Jonathan, we were chatting about him coming to speak, was his journey. He did kind of do the traditional with the not so. He did go to university, but he's had, like what I've been trying to promote with some of you, I don't call it a side hustle, it's a bit cliche, but having that business, so you don't have to get a job at McDonald's while you're at uni to put yourself through, so you can do both. And we wanted to promote people in this course to do both, to do one or the other. Look, he's been an entrepreneur, well, still is, but has worked from, yourself, from scratch, other people, etc. So it's a really interesting journey, and perhaps, quite different to some of the others that we've heard from. Any other questions for Jonathan before we wrap it up? I'm sure if you do, he would be more than happy to answer them. Thomas, you're up then.
Yay. Thank you.
A loud voice.
Yeah. So just on behalf of the boys here at the Westlaker Openground, I just want to give a big thank you to you for coming in and talking to us about your entrepreneurial journey. It's been a big inspiration to me, and looking into what I potentially should be doing in the future, and what I maybe should be doing now as well, looking on what I should actually be focusing on. So I'd just like to give a big thank you to you again. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Right.